Hi, my name is Garrett Johnson. I'm a researcher at Boston University, and I do research on online advertising and privacy issues. I'm excited to tell you about some recent research, and ongoing research that was funded by the Privacy and Economics program at George Mason University. This is the advent of privacy-centric digital advertising, tracing privacy-enhancing technology adoption. This is co-authored with Nico Neumann at Melbourne Business School. We certainly want to thank PEP for their support. I also want to thank the Hariri Institute at Boston University and the Digital Business Institute at Questrom Business School as well for their support in funding this research. All right, so to start, this paper is about online advertising and some interesting developments to try to improve privacy. At the outset, I think it's worth taking a multidisciplinary lens to examine this industry. And three disciplines, I think, are leading in examining this industry. The first is law, the second is computer science, and the third is my own discipline, which is marketing and economics. So from the perspective of law, law scholars and regulators have been wrestling with the difficult problem about how to create privacy regulation. And a particular area of focus has been this area of online advertising and the technologies that enable it, including third-party cookies. Now, as for computer scientists, they've long been interested in trying to measure privacy issues involved in various technologies. So when it comes to the web, there's this kind of cottage industry within the field of tracking the trackers that is visiting websites and seeing the third-party domains and third-party cookie interactions that arise when visiting the website. Now, as for my own field of marketing and economics, we maybe focused less on the details of the technology and thought more about how this can create value for marketers, how they can optimize that value. But increasingly, we're thinking about the policy trade-offs involved here. So I think the highest level policy trade-off here is the trade-off between privacy and the ad-funded internet. Now, in other research, I've looked at the value of ads with and without cookies, and shown that without cookies, ad prices fall about 52%. This is broadly consistent with many, but not all, papers in this literature. So this creates a really stark trade-off between, wanting two things, but having those two things being in conflict, which is, getting things for free on the internet, but also protecting user privacy. Now, there's been a recent development in privacy-enhancing technologies, and in particular, their applications to this online advertising industry that promise a third way, that allow better protection of user privacy, but at the same time still allow value-creating uses of data that would help fund the internet. So in this research, we want to try to examine how these things work in practice. So to provide an overview of this research on a slide, the big research question we're trying to answer is how does the online advertising industry adopt privacy-enhancing technologies? The specific setting that we're considering is Google's Privacy Sandbox. And Google's Privacy Sandbox is a collection of technologies that are meant to replace third-party cookies that enable typical advertising use cases while improving user privacy. So we're going to focus on a couple of these technologies, the Topics API and the Protected Audiences API. The Topics API assigns users to interest segments based on the domains that they've browsed in the past. So if you've browsed a lot of web pages related to tennis, then the browser would infer that you're interested in tennis and would share that information with ad tech companies in order to better target the advertising. The second technology, Protected Audiences API, is a really ambitious reworking of how the online ecosystem works. So currently, ad tech companies use cookies to track user behavior, to infer their interests. And instead of having all that information stored on servers, the Protected Audience API makes it so that that information doesn't leave the user's device, essentially. And so this allows for behavioral targeted ads, including even retargeted ads that are determined at the level of the browser rather than being shared with external servers in order to improve user privacy. Okay, so in order to study the adoption of these technologies, we are going to visit a panel of 60,000 top commercial websites and intercept their use of these two APIs. In order to do this, we're partnering with a startup called Sincera that specializes in measuring the ad tech used by different web pages. So one of the outcomes or public goods that we're trying to create with this project is a public dashboard that shares updated stats on Privacy Sandbox adoption. We think that this would be useful to a variety of stakeholders that are trying to wrestle with these technologies, which can include academics like ourselves, regulators, journalists, as well as industry stakeholders. So in terms of the academic intended contributions here, from the perspective of computer science, we're trying to provide a novel approach to measuring ad tech on the web that keeps pace with these new developments in privacy-centric online advertising. From the perspective of law and policy, we hope to help the regulators evaluate these technologies. And also from a perspective of crafting privacy law in the future, we hope to help think about the possible role that privacy-enhancing technologies could have in privacy regulation. And finally, from the perspective of my own field, we're interested in studying innovation, which in this case is privacy-enhancing technologies, and its consequences to industry. All right, so let me just give you a quick sneak peek of what this dashboard looks like. We hope to release this publicly very soon. So here is showing some data from the Topics API, showing the adoption rates, the number of websites that are using this, the shares of various vendors that are calling for users' topics. And we can see that about a third of websites are making use of this in our data, which we think is quite a lot and speaks to the simplicity of this proposal. Websites can also opt out of participating in topics. We've seen the opt-out rate decrease from about 3 or 4%, or 2 to 4% a couple years ago to only 1% right now, suggesting some greater acceptance of these technologies among publishers. Next, I'll show you some data from Protected Audiences API. So this has two sides to it. On the one side, we have advertisers that are trying to target users with behaviorally targeted ads. On the other side, we have publishers that are trying to run auctions to be able to show targeted ads to users. And these two sets of vendors are going to interact with different parts of this API. So on the advertiser side, they're going to try to add users to interest groups. And so we'll look at the share of websites that add users to interest groups. This is maxed out at about 4.7%, though there is an important caveat that we lose visibility into one of the largest vendors, Criteo, in November for technical reasons. So that drop is reflective of merely a technical reason and not a reduction in adoption here. The other important development is that our data was not able to show Google adoption of these technologies, Google's ad tech vendors, until February. And so the numbers we expect very shortly are going to look very different. So instead, when we focused on the publisher side of this, we've looked at a couple of different ways. We looked at competitors that were offering protected audience auctions, which is about 1% of our data. And we also looked at the share of websites that are using what's called header bidding to sell advertising. And we saw that 1.4% of those websites were adding a functionality for protected audiences in their settings. So, data collection is ongoing, but we already see a sense of, what is the adoption of these technologies and what are some of the vendors in this space. All right, so I want to conclude, invite any comments, feel free to reach out to me. I encourage you to follow me on social media at Garjo Canuck on Twitter or via LinkedIn. I'll be posting updates on this project. We hope to make our dashboard public very soon. So stay tuned and for more news. And again, I want to thank the Privacy and Economics program at George Mason University for funding this funding this research. Thanks so much.